Yes, let's go. I'd like to call the Town of Rocky Hill Plan Implementation Committee regular meeting to order. It's Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. Public comment. Anyone in the public who'd like to address to the commission? No, the committee. I don't see anyone. 2025 Plan of Conservation Development update.
We did receive, thanks to Nicole, $25,000 for POCD update. One of the ideas that have been floated, and we're in the process of forming a committee, another committee, but it's okay. It's a more of a working group. Don't worry about it.
I don't think your name was on there.
No,
your
it
name
wasn't on
wasn't
there. It's and I'm giving you, I had no time to print out the other things, but it's community resilience workshop type process, and a letter of intent to do this did go out from our town manager. There is a core team that will be assigned to this: Steve, myself, Joe Lentini, Public Works,
Get Mike Carey, yeah.
Mike Garrett, Fire Chief Emergency Management Director,
I think
Derek's on there. So it's a small core of people, and then from there we're going to branch out and kind of get the tentacles into the community and into boards, commissions. So there may be a P&Z representative.
And what's the name of that group again?
It's a community resilience
You got the attention.
workshop.
This
This is like an example from that website, but Ray did direct me to the document that Norwalk put together, and since I'm a one-person show, I didn't have time to make copies. But I need this back if you want to pass it around.
How does this process differ than the last time we did this?
Well,
the POCD?
this is kind of like to provide some sort of framework. Keep in mind we have less funds, so we're not getting the whole ball of wax.
I think we have 20.
Yeah, like, there's 20 or 25. 20.
Wasn't the last one also a less of one, the 2015?
No.
Oh, no.
It
That
wasn't?
that was a big overhaul, I remember
That
that.
was a big deal, yeah. If you could pass that around, because I have one copy. I will
This
get.
one is not a big overhaul, right? Is that?
No, I don't
We're
think
gonna-
it
we're
should
gonna-
be
I'll give you
before.
copies.
Problem.
I'll give people copies of this. But I wanted to at least intro,
Update the pictures.
yeah, I can email that. But I wanted to at least provide that introduction, so my goal on this, with this group also, is to kind of get off the dime for some of the things that we've been discussing ad infinitum for a long time. And instead of moving in the present, let's move into the future and talk about our POC update. And let's talk about what some of the hot button topics are that we see. But POCD, that's why we're here. That's why this working group was formed. So when we're going to have the core group's going to have their kickoff meeting sometime next week, which will be a very brief meeting, and then we'll have more direction so I can farm that out to people.
You want to go over that Excel list again, don't you?
No, we are not doing that ever again.
It's not beneath me to hiss at you, Victor.
You know, we all said no pretty quick.
So hopefully, right, because POCD is different than this committee.
Well, this committee, it does have a lot of similarities as far as what we hope to glean out of this process. It's community engagement. It's looking at, sustainability. It's looking at hazard mitigation. It's looking at a lot of things that the POCD looks at also. So we hope to marry what we find here into the POCD. So this will provide a piece of that
A
puzzle
piece, yes,
that's
yeah,
not
because
missing.
POCD is a lot more
Yes, but
and covers a lot more.
yeah, this will certainly
Yep.
take up a good part of it, so.
Okay.
It's a plus, we're moving that forward.
So you said the RFP or the request went out or?
No,
No,
it's not.
nothing yet, okay,
No, I've been trying to
okay.
keep my head above water.
Affordable housing.
I know Ed Ed, I think, wants to talk on this too. Is that
Sure,
correct?
yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
The ordinance has been passed, and it's my understanding from talking to Ray Carpentino as well as Dana McGee as far as the next steps. I've been working on the application.
Mhm.
The application for the committee is going to be similar to the Commission on Inclusion and Innovation. You tie the ordinance as a link to that, and I didn't check the town clerk's website this week as of yet, but last week there was no codification, so there's no chapter assigned
Yep.
to it. So the ordinance as it exists now is here, but there's no chapter, and you have copies there. And one of the updates at the council was to make sure we included those residing in affordable housing communities,
Mhm.
whether it be the housing authority, whether it be in CHFA units, what have you.
Mhm.
Bylaws are being done, I'm working on that.
Yep.
As far as, similar to P and Z, ZBA, except you don't have statutory timeframes, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. So it's more on how to conduct meetings and
Mhm.
people can see the membership and how they get appointed and stuff like that. So, and that's the application process also. I know Ed had put together information, and I don't want to steal your thunder about how the units are dropping. We do have additional units obviously coming on board, but as we get market rate units, we also get a smaller percentage of affordable units.
Yep.
And I mean, the state has always been discussing, the 830G process and that magic 10%.
Mhm.
And how is that practical, and how do we go about getting there? I was at a CCM training session, and some of the communities down by the shoreline were like, well, we want our 5-acre zoning,
Mhm.
and we're not gonna do anything. Our community wants our 5-acre zoning, and we're not gonna do multifamily. We have to get over that hurdle.
Didn't work out for New Canaan.
Yeah, we have to get over that hurdle, so, I don't know if you want to talk about the walk audit where we talked about, the affordable housing also?
So I think,
Because it's all kind of intermixed.
with the affordable housing, what I would recommend is we talk to Department of Housing, and see the calculation, because just because the regular units went up because of the
Yeah.
developments coming in, doesn't mean it's always going to go down, the 4%, 3%. We get credit for creating affordable housing. There's a formula. So I think we have to look at the formula, understand it, and see every unit that we create benefits the town. So we should not miss that sight, the fact, and just focus on regular units versus affordable, and now we are over, so,
Yeah, we did have a decrease in CHFA
yeah,
type mortgages, so there was a notable decrease.
yes.
And I think Ed noticed that there was the last housing appeals list used the 2010.
Yeah,
is that what you said?
they've all been using that 2010 census.
Census information, which is inaccurate.
Mhm.
For what
I
we're
have a
at.
question. Kim, on the decrease in CHFA housing, does that equate to a decrease? That doesn't mean necessarily affordable, that just means a decrease in those types of mortgages.
Yeah, but those are classified as affordable.
As
Oh, those are
affordable,
classi-
yeah.
Those are
classified as affordable.
classified as
As-
affordable.
as-
Okay, so if they go down, our affordable goes down?
So,
Yeah, it went down to like 4.93, is that it?
so this is all based on the Connecticut Appeals List. If you look at online, and Google Connecticut Appeals List, this is what Sustainable CT does, is they look at the last 5 years. And if we go up within those last 5 years, a quarter of a point, then we're acknowledged and we get points for our Sustainable CT. So we go back now to 2018 for 5 years. In 2018, our percentage was 5.09. Our percentage now is 4.93. So we've gone down, and like Kim said, what we've gone down and see, they look at 4 different things. They look at government assistance, and our government assisted housing, affordable housing, has not changed. It stays the same. It's been $235 for 5 years. Tenant rental assistance, I'm not quite sure what that is. If you can explain
So
what
that's
tenant.
Section
Rental, that could be Section 8.
Yeah.
Also, there's a state-led annual program for renters rebate, so that could be lumped in through the captain program. So that's for anybody who falls under the financial guidelines that receives a portion of their rent back up to usually about $700 annually.
So that has actually increased. We went from 42 5 years ago, now we're up to about 63 dwellings that have tenant rental assistance.
So that's
As
the
Kim-
Section 8.
Yes,
That's in Section 8.
As Kim said, the CHFA went down at 5 years ago. We were 173, we were 195, 194, now we're at 138 for CHFA.
That went down quite a
I'm sorry?
bit. That went down quite a bit.
Right, and then the issue that I see that we have is that we have 0 deed restricted. And that's why we need an Affordable Housing Committee, right? And once we have the Affordable Housing Committee, we need to get the language for deed restriction, because Kelson Row, all those places that are coming online, those are all deed restricted apartments.
They have to,
Correct.
all those
10%.
projects, the Cowson Row, the Vessel project,
Right.
1344 Silestein, which is the office building behind Wendy's, and now 2094, we have a few units there,
Stepney
2094 Stepney Place. Those, all they have to do is they have to submit their plans and their deeds and everything to us for review. The initial ones go into the town attorney, obviously. We have to make sure we get everything just so. So all that's gonna be under legal.
So I guess my question for the Affordable Housing Committee, once that's formed, is that, because I think there's language in the Affordable Housing Plan that says the Affordable Housing Committee has to gather documents, right? In other words, deeds to, and so if we're gonna pull, say for instance, Kelson gives us something first, and then Stepney, and then maybe we look at that and we say, okay, we're gonna,
But it won't necessarily go to them depending on when this committee is formed. Hopefully it's sooner than later.
right.
But,
So I guess what I'm
they
saying
will
is,
come into our office and we will form them to the town attorney for legal review to make sure they pass muster and meet their
right, and it's something I guess that, yeah, the town has to agree upon that.
And then that will be filed on the name records.
And then perhaps, is this something that we will have as a town for the next affordable housing unit that comes in and says, well, we already had language for this deed restricted
Well, they have to
apartment.
submit. They, the applicants need to submit
Oh,
that
it's
to
on
the
them.
town.
So it's on
Yeah,
them.
yeah. So we have certainly, we have like the template to compare it to, yes. We will at that point.
Okay.
So what I envision with the Affordable Housing Committee is that committee on an annual basis will review and make sure, Kelson Row, give me your affordable housing unit. 10% you met. Stepney, give me your 10%. Boom, 10% it met. I think, I envision them to be like a watchdog agency type, make sure that if we have 50 restricted units in the town with various projects, that they are keeping an eye. The staff probably cannot keep an eye on all those kinds of stuff. They will get updates and stuff, but I think I would see that the committee make, that effort and make sure that, yep, 10% you are meeting. Because what will happen is people leave and
They-
people come back.
They can change it?
Right.
Yes.
So,
Well, they can.
yeah.
Yeah, they can say this one is not affordable anymore.
Yeah, and that, which means that, okay, now if you require 8 units affordable, then this one's, and the next vacant one's gonna be.
Because they don't designate unit 1 as affordable, unit 10 as affordable. They don't designate
They
that.
on your door.
It's open.
No.
So I think that would be, that I see would be because that is very critical.
Yes, it is.
Well, they're gonna
Because-
rent those last, right? That's part of the rotation of the, right? As long as they're designating X amount that fall under that.
Right, so we want to make sure that when it opens up, if there were 30 units, they
Right.
designate 30 units and say, okay, we are keeping 30 units open and everything else we are renting. If affordable, eligible people come in, then they'll go there in the 30 units.
So when does that start? Because these developers get CO per building. They don't get it for final.
No, so,
Your final
so,
CO is for, like, they'll get the CO for the clubhouse first, and then they'll get the CO for the first 40-unit building or
We
whatever.
Town will have-
We
yeah.
need their documents in place before I sign off on the CO.
Before you sign off on the first CO for the first
We can't-
building.
We can't do that.
Okay.
They can sign off on the clubhouse, I don't care about the
But
clubhouse.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not for the,
Checks
we're
and
not,
balances.
we're not
Yeah.
waiting for the whole development to get our
No.
X amount of units. We're waiting, so
We
all the
need the
paperwork needs.
documents. Once we get the documents, they're all.
That's the promise. That's the promise.
Yeah.
yeah.
So the Affordable Housing Committee, it has to select an administrator, right? And that administrator, I see as the person that's going to be doing the checking up. And
We're
no,
not
it's
talking
part of the,
about-
it's part of the
yeah.
committee, not,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's-
unless Kim's on the committee, I mean, I
I
don't
don't
know.
know, kidding.
It's already underwater.
We're
It
not.
has to be a staff person, yes.
Okay,
I don't know. I-
Scuba gear at home, I'm
Midnight,
fine.
midnight.
Does this administrator have to be a staff person? It can't be a member of a committee, like a volunteer or a citizen or whatever you call it.
Your new hire.
I mean,
I think it might
That's
be
the inward doubt.
Maybe.
volunteer.
Yeah.
it
gonna
all,
be
it
Wait,
depends
is there an
on
answer- wait, is there an
how
answer
the
to that
budget
question?
and all that is, because.
Does it have to be a staff
Right.
Does
person?
it have to be
I don't
an
know.
employee of the town?
Administrator, I think, does, not.
Well,
That's
isn't
my
that,
question.
isn't that in the bylaws that you're writing? Technically?
Not in there yet.
I mean, I'm just saying that they would be part of the bylaws that you're writing, so.
Is that what you envision?
It would probably, there would be a staff advisor.
I mean,
So here, let me read from the plan for a second. So, part of it is preparing for deed restricted housing. This is under the Affordable Housing Committee. And so they're charged with preparing documents so all developments meet the same parameters. And then they require town approval of an administrator of the Affordable Housing Plan. I guess you might have to look further into it to see whether or not that administrator is going to be
Yeah,
staff
so-
or.
so I
Usually
think why don't
administrator
we-
is a town with the authority
Yeah.
to authorize, right? Because if it's a chairman or somebody, it's gonna.
so let,
They're also the
Here-
liaison.
Somebody.
They're also the liaison to the legal, the town lawyers that
Yeah.
need to be.
so I think we still have to work out those
Yep.
details, so,
Right.
okay.
And their council.
Sidewalk,
Council's
update.
Well, before we get to, can I, is there,
Yeah.
get a little more time here on the affordable housing if I can. Kim, I wrote to Kim and asked the 3 questions about the 11.32 and the end, and I just, I don't know if I can just bring those up here.
Memory,
What?
because
Yeah.
two things have happened.
There's four actions under sustainable CT that has to do with planning and zoning, regulations, and affordable housing. And you answered them, but I'd like maybe to have a little discussion on those. Let me read. Number 1 is establish a state-approved incentive housing zone in eligible locations. You recall what your answer to that was?
We don't have
So-
one. We don't have one.
So incentive housing zone, I used to run that program. It's, we don't have, what happened is municipalities were creating these incentive housing zones where one of the biggest benefit was density. So developers get higher density for 1 acre, they can create 30 units, for example. You know, versus our regular zoning will only say 5 units, right? So that was one of the biggest thing. Other than that, there is no other incentive, you know, it's just like a regular project. The P&Z and all that will give this, you know, and in turn, we will get X number of affordable units. Because town is giving up the, you know, allowing density, you get X% of, you know, affordable units. So that's one of the ways of doing it. However, what I see is we have made, you know, our zoning regulations and making sure that we are asking for all this, you know, affordable units. I think the town is making a proactive approach and taking proactive approach in getting all these affordable units built. So, you know, so.
But to your point about density,
Yeah.
we also create opportunity for density with ADUs and didn't we just do something about, having smaller houses on plots so we could be more dense and in return we get something out of it? More land or more, we did something, it was in our subdivision or in the R40 zone that,
Like a cluster kind of?
that's it.
We also, yeah, we've had no one partake in
No,
that,
no, but we
we've had-
have it in our regs now that we
Yeah.
have cluster housing, we have ADU.
That's kind of like Rachel
Well,
and Nessa.
So
You
is density, is that a proponent of what he's talking about
You
here?
can do
Or vehicle to-
detached ADUs as well as an attached ADU. We talked on our walk audit about something I raised with the commission about allowing for mixed use on South State Highway, especially in the area from where we are now, north towards Parsonage Street and beyond even, to provide units. And we've done that at behind Windlays. That was.
So do you need an official zone like
No.
he's talking about, or can we cite some of these things in our regs so we can get credit for it? Because isn't that what
Yeah.
ultimately
Well,
we're
it's saying,
asking, or?
what it's saying is establish a state-approved incentive housing zone
No, so that we don't
in
have.
So-
eligible locations. I guess what
Right.
I'm asking is,
Yeah.
is this a question that could be discussed in your full planning and zoning committee? You know, that's the topic. I don't know that we're gonna answer it now.
So, there,
Well, that would be a
yeah, I mean,
POCD thing first before.
huh?
Do you want to bring that up in P and Z?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so I think people have to first get familiarized with what IHZ is. IHZ is established, and what happens is there is a process and you have to go through and designate areas. It can't be a floating zone. It's not a floating zone. It's area. You identify an area. Now, we can, look at our areas while we are doing the updating POCD. We can look at and see if there are areas available that we can do incentive housing zone, higher density development. We got projects right now, like we approved 3 projects with higher densities, right?
The question is, it says state approved. So
Yeah.
Has the state stepped in on this? What do we need from the state? I mean, we can say to a developer, okay, this is a approved, higher density zone, whatever. But then do we have to call up the state and say, get
So,
somebody in
so the
here?
process is that it starts at a local level.
Right. it
Local
does.
level will identify the zone, the area, and say, this is the area, incentive housing zone has
Understand.
requirements and all that stuff, and then it has to be approved, signed off by council and P&Z, and then goes to the state, they look at all that stuff and say, okay, yeah, this makes sense, and they will say incentive housing zone. But unless the units are built, you are not getting any deed restricted units. You just have a zone. I don't know what it says about points and stuff just for having a zone.
Well, you-
How do the landowners fit in all this?
So that's another thing.
Well,
It's like you
that's why I
can't-
think there might be better to have a discussion with,
Yep.
in P and Z, because I'm not an expert in that, and I think you have more
Yeah, I mean,
knowledge of your regs.
Yep.
So I don't know if you want to bring that up
yeah,
as a topic.
we can bring it up at the P&Z meeting. What I'm saying is, when we do POCD, that's when the consultant will also bring in all this information and
Yeah.
say, how do you create and all that stuff.
Okay.
So again, as you
So-
said, we can't just go and plop your land and say, this is IHZ now.
So there's
Yeah.
3 more. I don't want to take up a
Yep.
lot of time, but the second one is a smaller one. It says educate residents on accessory dwelling units,
Mhm.
regulations and opportunities. Heard you talking about it, but it says to educate residents. So how have we educated residents?
So I think we do have, we did create something about,
Well, we modified our regulations
Right.
and we had public hearing. We didn't have any workshops. It was basically a public
Well,
hearing.
the public
So-
hearing was the workshop.
Yeah.
but I think it's, and I'm just speaking out loud, I don't think it's P&Z who's going to do outreach. I think this housing committee, probably that would be one of the things that housing committee does, outreach on a lot of different things, not just this. And maybe that's one of the tasks. Because P&Z is implementing and coming up with laws and regulations or whatever, right? So I see
Right.
that would be like committee task.
Well, but.
And it should be
so-
pointed out that the Affordable Housing Committee has certain tasks. P and Z, while they're included in the Affordable Housing Plan, they can on their own modify their regulations
Yep.
to do certain things. Yes, in concert with the Affordable Housing or whatever, but they can
So
undertake amendments.
along the edge here, they're facilitators, and P and Z is listed as a
Yep.
facilitator. You could, again, during one of your P and Z meetings,
Yep.
just make a statement about accessory dwelling units.
Yep.
That's educating the public.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, literally taking 1 minute. Is
No,
that
and I
something
think.
you think you could do?
Right. I mean, I think we can always do that, but if we have the real intent, I would like to go further and have the committee, the housing committee, take it couple steps down and say, let's do it really, right? I mean, let's do outreach, let's meet people, whatever, you
Yeah,
know?
well, I can sit down and talk to Ed, or I can
Yep.
talk to him about it. An idea would be the senior center, because ADUs especially,
Yep.
caregivers, children, something like that, maybe a presentation there.
That would probably be
And
perfect.
I can do it.
Okay.
I mean, we can, I mean, I can always talk like one liner, but that's
Yeah.
not, I don't think that meets the intent of what we want to do.
Yeah.
I just don't want to give lip service.
Okay,
you know?
so I think I think that's
Yeah.
a good idea. I don't know if you think that's a, I think that-
Anything is
I think-
better
but I
than
think-
nothing.
but I
We-
think
you know,
that-
move forward.
but at the senior level,
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
might be a good idea.
Yeah, great.
I don't
Thank
know.
you. Two more. As required by the Fair Housing Act, allow unrelated people to live in a single household pursuant to your municipality's maximum occupancy limitation.
We presently,
Yeah, we don't
That's
have.
that-
well, we do have
That's
in
like
there
that
a
Hartford
definition
thing,
of
right?
family.
It's like that Hartford thing.
However,
Yeah.
it talks about only 4 people unrelated and whatever, and other people there. I was thinking, and that was gonna be a discussion topic, is not at this meeting, but to just eliminate that definition.
You're thinking what?
Eliminate that definition. Of
Right now
family.
it says.
We have a
4
definition of family, and it talks about people related by marriage, adoption, what have you, and then it also talks about 4 unrelated persons, and
And you wanna
then it goes
eliminate
on,
that.
and it goes beyond that to other unrelated people. But I was thinking just eliminate.
So no
definition.
restriction.
I think.
Because
Yep.
they're really, nowadays, they're really shouldn't be.
And I think what.
I don't know
what-
that it's
But
ever been
how does that
enforced.
stop, for lack of a better term, overpopulation of
Well,
a apartment house?
you have building code issues, you have
Okay.
housing code, and you have, there's, in the housing code, it's a certain amount of cubic feet per
Right.
person.
Okay, so there are checks and balances.
So it
to-
doesn't,
to
it's
doing
irrelevant
this.
what the relationship is in
Yes,
essence, because
yes.
it's a matter, it's
And then you have building
it's an
code.
algorithm of
Yes.
square footage versus
Yeah.
body and plumbing and all
Yeah.
of those issues.
We've had these.
We've had
that
these
we-
come up.
Yeah.
So your idea about eliminating it?
I think what
You
happened.
could maybe bring
again,
that up. That's a possibility to bring that up then.
We can
That's
bring
a
that up,
P&Z thing.
we can bring that up,
Okay.
but, I always go out to public hearing or whatever.
Well, we have to.
We,
That's- that's
bring
the
that up
process.
and all that.
The
So,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
we can add that.
The last one
You said
is,
3, that's number 4.
no, I said 4. 11 point.
He said 3 more after the first one.
Oh, that's how we got
Got the
by.
three right.
This is it, that's the last one. In at least one residential zone, allow developers to get an increase in density if at least 20% of the approved proposed housing development is affordable, and/or require that 10% of all housing units in developments of more than 5 units are affordable. If
And
that's too,
or.
I don't know if that's too confusing.
So it's either 20% or 10%.
I mean, so
An
we,
increase in density.
we already have, like, we created Stepney Place, right? So that was,
That was just by asking them.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't do anything with any regulation
Where
in
was
place.
that? Stephanie Place.
Behind-
1800
Taco Bell.
Solacene Highway.
Yeah, you know,
Oh,
that area.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
1800 Solacene Highway, 1360,
Yeah, we had it
1344
at Wetlands, I just
Solacene.
didn't know the name of
We
it.
did the same thing. They actually modified the regulations for that one. 2094 Sodestine Highway, just approved, same thing, it's 10% of the units designated as affordable.
Guy who came in yesterday, was he doing any?
La, 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 la.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
that
doing
was
it.
2094, it's okay. I was like, what are you talking about? Okay.
No, so I mean, I think, I don't know what this list
I don't know what that.
gets us. Is it going to get me money? Right? I mean, that's what we are looking at, right? I mean, because we are doing everything else. We are trying, proactively as
Well,
you
we
can-
need the committee to get them, or to establish the fund to get the money.
Yeah, but again, what I'm saying is, if these goals we meet, is there money from the state? Is there something that benefits us if we check all these 5 points, like 4 points?
These are sustainable principles. These are best practices. These
Yep.
are things that are going to move people into housing that everybody has a right to have.
Yep.
It's not about money.
Okay.
I mean, it is about money, yes,
Yep.
but we're looking at increasing density to 20% for affordable housing, or in one residential zone, increased density, right? Is there one well, again, I think this is a prompt for the P&Z to have discussion
Yeah.
and maybe come up with it, maybe not all in one evening, maybe you take one,
Yeah.
Well, it's a workshop for the
It's a
POCD also.
POCD workshop, because again, if you own a land and town designates that as 20% and, high density and all that, how would you feel, right?
Why don't we just start with town land?
Yeah, so I think those are
We have town
complications that you
land
have
that
to
already
think
has
about.
housing on it, right? Like,
Because
Yeah.
if you just look at what happened in
that's
the
an
last 5
instant
years,
low-hanging fruit zone. We just turn that zone into a high-density zone.
in,
Yeah.
in last 3 years, we have created a lot more affordable housing than all these decades back.
Actually, just the last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah,
Last
so,
year.
so I think we are proactive. I can truly say town of Rocky Hill is proactive and we are creating housing units.
We just don't have the fruition because they haven't built yet.
Right, we haven't seen, but, they're building, they're there, so. So I think we can take all these things, and while we are working on POCD, I think we can address that at a global level when the consultant sends out questionnaires and all that kind of stuff, we can address all that stuff. And see what the responses come back, and,
I'm all set.
so, okay.
Thank you.
Sidewalks.
Sidewalks, I'm gonna give you a rundown real quick, I don't wanna beat a dead horse here. So Elm Street, we've been working on that, that's gotta get out. So that's 1,500 plus feet to fill a gap. Glastonbury Ave, we do have between Glastonbury Ave and Century Hills Phase 2, we have been selected for this project, but we're still waiting the state to give us our notice to proceed. The Century Hills Phase 1, we have that pretty well along. It'd be nice to bid those together. That's $2.7 million, those 4 projects.
Is that because it's state roads and all that?
Nope, no, it's just you apply lots of through CROG,
Oh,
and,
yeah, okay.
and then it goes to the state, and we were selected, but now we have to wait for the paperwork so we can
Yeah.
start to design, because we don't want to start design without the go-ahead.
Yeah.
Then we have a couple other areas. Washington Street's been on the CIP. France Street, there's a big gap that we're trying to fill so folks can get down France and get to Route 3. New roads now is going to be a push now that we're going to be doing a barn and all that up at the Straska Farm in Silas Dean. A lot of talk about trying to get to Town Line Road, a lot of complications. But there's, on Hayes Road, that's come up recently because of, the stop signs and all that other stuff. So we're looking at 1.3, $1.5 million just for those things. Those are basically unfunded.
It was, you put some stop signs up on Hayes there in a crosswalk.
I didn't put them up.
And I was just saying, it's like, oh my God, they're building the sidewalk, and then it's just like a little elbow, and that was it, we're done.
Yep.
Like, oh.
I know you've got more on your plate than all this, but has it ever come up Main Street from like west to Brook? Is that somewhere in your thought process?
Main Street.
Over there.
Yeah, it has
The
come up,
sidewalk
it's
comes
just
as far as West Street. with
going
the-
towards your house.
Right, and then you've got a strip of nothing to
Yep,
Brook, and then
yep.
you've got a small piece. But I know then there are wetlands.
Are you
issues.
talking on Brook Street or you're talking
Main
Main
Street,
Street? Yeah,
Main
Main,
Street.
yeah. It's come up, but it's not ranking as high as
So
these
many
other ones.
people that use the bus stops and whatever there. I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah?
see, and especially the people who get the bus there and then walk up Brook Street to it's now what BJ's or whatever. There's a fair amount of traffic.
Yeah, well, Brook Street has some. We're working with, trying to get a grant for that with, I forgot what it is, just Kerry Wood's working on it. I just got the thing today, so.
Okay, so maybe that's down the line
But
somewhere.
that's Brook Street itself, not Main. Yes.
No, I mean, it's a short piece on Main.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's over $4 million worth of projects for like nine sections of sidewalk. Just to give you an idea, we're estimating somewhere around $100 a foot. So,
And it would be prevailing wage and all that kind of stuff, right?
well,
So that's what.
in
that-
general, yeah, depending on
Mhm.
what the bid comes in at, if it's new work or repairs, and yeah, it
Okay.
is prevailing wage.
And
And
so,
CHRO if it's state funds, which is a nightmare.
yes, you have to
Yep.
meet all that, meet all
Yes,
the
that
requirements.
threshold needs to change.
So, on the Glastonbury Ave, have we figured out now?
Yeah, we have a plan
Side,
going on
okay.
the north side. Yep.
Okay, so all that is worked out now
Well,
with the state?
we can get to the railroad tracks. After that, there's no right of way.
You can go the north side all the way to the tracks,
We have to cross over
to where the parking lot's gonna be?
to where the parking lot's gonna be.
So at least
Otherwise,
that's
we
good.
could go on that side, just it'd be walls because it's so steep.
So that is good, at least
Yeah.
we got
So,
main connection.
so one of the things, I happen to be in Simsbury, and I happen to be close to dusk and dusk or dark, and a lot of their crosswalks have these flashing, like when there's someone comes, they start
Yep.
flashing.
Yep. They're about $30,000 a piece.
Yeah, but I mean, or do you need those, or that's just
No.
like a luxury? Why would you have
rapid
those?
flashing beacons, usually put them at a mid-block crosswalk, not on a corner. So,
Okay, like, so would we need that in on Glastonbury Ave, because it's
yes,
gonna be mid?
yes, that would definitely be something there. Yep.
So no plans from railroad tracks to the rail, there's
no
nothing,
right of way.
nothing
There's no right of way.
else,
There's the
no
state-
option?
To tell you the truth, the state road is already encroaching on private property there
Where
on
is
one
that
side.
again?
From
You go over the railroad
railroad-
tracks to
Wait,
go to the
one
river.
person, what?
Glastonbury Ave, you get to the railroad tracks. As soon as
Oh.
you cross over going east, the road is shifted actually on the private property, and the other side is, we're gonna have the Tool Sino Parks, we'll have that, but once you get past there,
After that, there's no option.
there's no
Yeah,
right of
I
way, you're on
understand.
private property
I
the
just
whole way.
didn't hear what,
Yeah.
where you're speaking of.
So,
Is there any option on, I know it's a private property, right, along the railroad where the restaurant was going to come?
well, I
Is
suggested
that
that.
from, and then
I
go
suggested
down?
going down the railroad
Yeah,
and then seeing if we get an easement, because the state
Right.
has their boathouse or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
That office across the street, and go down there and some, I don't know.
so at least
It wasn't looked upon favorably.
it's not
With
ADA,
an
but,
active line, you can't do
You'd have to go on,
Fence.
Yeah.
Fence.
yeah.
that. Yeah.
You gotta cross the railroad track one
Yeah.
way or another, so you cross and just, we work with the owner there, and maybe he gives us,
Bridge it.
an easement over
Bridge.
that,
yeah.
although now he's looking to change the use.
From Riverview, put a bridge in.
Yeah.
Steve, the Elm Street is gonna happen when?
It better happen next year, cause I'm tired of
Next
looking at it, yeah. We had some holdups here and there, COVID for one, and then, getting the plans out of the ground and review and all that, so we're there. It's just now we need some easements and construction easements, 'cause, again, the road is
Mhm.
like that far from the right of way in some spots, so we have no right of way, so we have to obtain easements over some folks' land.
And Washington Street, you said was in the CIP?
Well, it's been in the CIP for 2 years, but I don't know where the funding is.
What's the goal for Washington to get from the center to the river?
End to end.
And so,
Glastonbury to.
the south side or
Destination.
the north side?
Washington would be, kind of be, I guess that'd be the west side. The odd side,
Yeah. The south side,
17,
yeah.
21,
South,
and
east
all
side.
those.
South
The
Yeah,
west
south
side.
yeah. So,
So what's holding that back then?
money.
Well, you said it's in the CIP.
It is, but, I tried to bid it last year and I was looked at like cross-eyed, even though it's put in CIP.
Okay.
So-
And so Washington Street and Glastonbury,
Glastonbury, we have,
They sort of go hand in hand,
They
right?
do, but-
Because we're trying to do the same thing, get down to the river
Yep.
from the town campus, and then, you know,
so Glastonbury's gonna be a different pot of money. That's gonna be the lots of state funding. As will Century Hills Phase 2. Century Hills Phase 1 is a steep grant, and Elm Street is also lots of. So those 4 state funds, 2.8 mil, 2.7 mil.
is there approval already for Glastonbury?
We were, through the selection process, we were selected. That's as far as it got. We don't have the commitment to fund letter.
Okay, so that, I think probably that's coming now. If you were selected, you
Yeah,
can-
it's
First
taken,
hurdle.
it's taken a
First
long time.
hurdle.
We were selected, and
Yep.
that was in
Who
April.
did that,
By what,
DECD
state?
or
Selected
DOH
Selected by
or
the state. I
OPM?
don't know, someone did, Grant Joe or
I don't know who the heck
state
selects
grant, I'm
that.
not sure if it's a
The last
special
program,
committee or
I
whatever.
think it's DOT.
Was it DOT?
I think it all goes through DOT.
And tell me what LOTSIP means.
Local,
It's
there's LoCIP, there's
LOCIP.
Local Transportation Capital Improvement Program.
And this is from the state of Connecticut?
Mhm.
So we were selected by the state
So
to
LOCIP is
receive,
OPM.
So they have a
Receive
pot of
money.
money,
It's OPM.
they have a pot of money, and all the towns
Yeah.
submit their proposals, and then it goes to the COGS, Capital Region Council of Government, and they select the projects that they want to advance. So we are selected to advance, and then in advance, and we were selected, just waiting on the funds, on the commitment to fund from the state. So,
Because I also know LOCIP, we get X%.
LoCIP,
The
we
town
get
just
like
gets
$114,
X%.
yeah, we get like $114,000 a year.
Yeah,
LoCIP.
so we can use that for anything.
We can use
want.
that.
Right.
So here's, I'm gonna get on my soapbox again. The problem with any state funding is after $50,000, you have to do
Prevailing
CHRO.
wage,
CHRO, last time I talked to the guy over there who runs it, you know, especially for sidewalks, you have these mom and pop operations, that's the owner and 3 employees. I said, this is ridiculous. He goes, it's only a 27-page form you have to fill out. Mom and pop's not gonna fill out a 27-page form to bid a job that's $100,000. So
So
it's
that's
tough.
hampering us in getting a
yeah.
contractor to do it, and then hampering us
There's
in
only,
getting the funds.
and the problem is, as you know,
Is that
there's
the
no
bottom line?
contractors. The one guy we use, he's ready to retire. There's another guy who's probably close behind him to retire. We had 2 bidders last time for sidewalks. And Jason, our new engineer, knew with 3rd, he reached out and he bid. And we had, through our solicitation, 2 bidders.
I mean, I think maybe we reach out to our legislators, see if we can
That's-
talk to
yeah,
them and,
I-
and explain what's going on, just like like what we are doing right now.
Yeah.
Go through and say, this is what it is.
That threshold's been $50,000 since 2016 anyways. We've had huge inflation and it hasn't moved. So it's a real
So if you could
hindrance.
get the threshold over 100, then we'd be in.
It should follow prevailing wage, I think is what it should follow. But yes, over 100.
To make our life easier.
Because sidewalks, just before COVID, they're about $50 a foot, close to 100,
Wow.
almost double the price.
Break it up,
Right,
into-
so
break it up
that's-
into 3 projects.
Well, that's what I've been doing. And then the guy from CHRO called me and gave me a hard time about this. I
He
said,
saw it.
too bad. It was this and this, there's 2 separate
He
contracts.
thought we were the first one to think of it, right?
He said it's 500,000 or 50,000. He goes, then you have to file. He said it's 499,000. I mean, it's 49,999.
on a separate topic for sidewalks, the sidewalks in front of Kelson Row, are they,
That's their responsibility.
are they redoing those sidewalks, or are they staying the same? They're gonna add the banding to
I-
them?
It's gonna be streetscape.
They're gonna do the streetscape.
So they're gonna
I
rip all
believe
those
they're
sidewalks up and
taking
put
all
new
up
ones
or
in?
something.
It's going to be same as
Yeah.
it's out there.
It's supposed to
Yeah.
match our streetscape.
Yeah, I know it was supposed to match, but I didn't know if they were gonna rip up the old ones.
Yeah.
Good.
Next,
As far as sidewalk waivers and.
okay.
The ordinance.
This is, one of the things I want to get to in this meeting is that these agendas are in the weeds, and the POCD is up here, and we need to kind of get back to up here, and then maybe assign the weed projects to others. So,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
So I hear you.
yeah, so,
Stop weeding.
No more minutia.
Get out of the garden.
Yeah,
No more
take your
minutia.
gloves off, your garden
So,
gloves.
but, no,
All right, so
I have
what's,
that guy.
okay. So we are in bikeways?
Bikeways, so I had a plan and some other folks who've been attending didn't like the plan, so we're doing nothing. A Sharrow, the bike mark with the, the share the road, they're
Yep.
$80 a pop. A bike symbol and arrow, if it was a bike lane, it's $52.50 each, and then you need a lane, that's 5 cents, roughly a linear foot. So to do the project that I was proposing, Cold Spring to Woodfield to New Road to Trinity Ridge to Falcon, is roughly 22,000 feet or 4.17 miles. Either way you slice, it's gonna be around $3,504 dollars to do either the lines in the symbol or just the Sharrows. So it's
That sounds feasible.
How much?
3,000?
$3,000 to $4,000, depending on how many symbols we put down. So,
Do you have like a map of that?
yeah, I've been bringing it, and I've shown you guys, and some of the
Yeah,
other folks.
there were like
some of
first
the other
page
folks are
cards,
like,
1,
it
2,
gives a
3.
false sense of security. We don't want that.
Alan, yeah.
Right.
So,
I know.
and then he demanded a new bike study, so I kind of dropped it.
He demanded a new bike study?
Yeah.
Well,
He
that's
wants a-
expensive.
He wants a full-blown committee and study.
I mean,
like
I would
Simsbury
rather.
did. By the way, I've talked to the guy in Simsbury. It's not complete. This isn't complete, even though it's online. It's not a complete study.
They're probably all living documents, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
well,
our
he said they never
PNC.
completed it.
Simsbury.
Yep, they never completed it, and they have some Sharrows, and because there's guidelines, it's supposed to be like every 250 feet, which is ridiculous. He said he did. Can I see from one to the other? And they kind of let theirs go. They haven't been painting them,
Did
but
they
I'm willing to
paint-
paint them. I'm willing to paint the Sharrows.
I mean, I think for first step, we should take action, right? Because study, we are spending
Yeah,
so
we
much
do.
money on study,
Yeah.
and then it will sit on the
You're
shelf.
getting nothing.
I
We
have a
have-
4 mile
we have
loop.
people,
Well, not
right?
quite a loop, but I have 4 miles. You go side to side and ride back. It's 8 miles.
I mean, we have bikers
Is
who are
this-
here,
Is
they
this
can
something that would
advise
be in
and
the
boom.
spring now?
We could probably do it this fall after we pave. We're getting
Yeah.
ready to pave out there.
You know,
We might be able to get them in this year.
you do that route, I've biked up through there, and I mean, there are no Sharrows, and, I mean,
There's
there's no
nothing.
security. So,
No.
you're still gonna ride it,
Yeah.
whether they put those on the ground or not.
Correct.
I think just do it.
Correct.
It's something.
So, yeah, I mean, I think if, we should just take action and show like, okay, and see how it works and whether it's beneficial, people who are using
If-
those lanes,
If you
see.
drive around the state, I got a little convertible. I drive all over the place.
Yep.
And sometimes you see them, sometimes you don't, but people
But
ride their bikes.
It's an awareness for the drivers.
It is.
And eventually they'll get used
It
to it.
is.
If they see a bike in that lane,
Yeah. So it's either a lane and the bike thing, then I have to get signs, which we don't have, so that's gonna up the price. This is just painting. Or we just do the Sharrow. And that's what we have basically out here. We don't have Sharrows on Old Main, but we can put them in. Then you don't have to have the lane, because the lane
So-
has to
The
be.
Sharrow is
the
just like
lane's
an
supposed to
arrow
be-
I
and-
think we need a lane.
I didn't bring
The only reason
pictures.
why, I mean, you think about your kids learning, driving in, the white line, don't go over the white line.
Yeah.
You see these arrows like, "Oh, shit, that's not-"
So the problem with the bike lane is, Old Main Street's not wide enough to do it. You need at least 4 feet, like
Right.
5.
You need.
And that's
right
like
away.
22 feet, 26 feet max, and you have to have a minimum 11-foot lane. So there's 22 feet out of your 26. And you want them both directions, not just one way.
And I think that's where you come in and see which
So-
one is a safe and
Well,
not safe and
I have
all
this,
that.
Cold Spring
Right.
to Woodfield to
Right.
New, to Trinity to
Yep.
to Falcon, it's reasonable.
Yes.
We could put the paint, we can do the Sharrows.
So I think we should,
I've
take
seen
that
them on
action.
that, and that can go on a narrower road. We can throw them on Old Main.
Mhm.
what about Brook Street?
I don't think we
Well-
can just throw them on. I think because you're kind of modifying the road, I think P&Z has to weigh in and give to the council. I don't know.
Well, we're not modifying the
It's
size
not
of the
a
road.
zoning
No.
thing, it's
No, it's
just
not a
a,
zoning
it's
thing.
like putting up a sign. Do I have to go to P&Z to put up a stop sign?
Is it major or
Don't
minor?
even go there. We're not talking stop signs.
Weeds, are we in the weeds here?
Yeah.
So-
I
Yeah,
would
we're in the
ju-
weeds.
I would just
Next.
say,
So why don't you guys figure out and,
Yes.
well, I would just say
Council
without,
will have to weigh in
without
on that,
Alan
right?
being here, and Alan has been sort of the I hate to use the word expert, but I know he's done a lot of research as you have, and I know he's pretty sure he's adamant, you know, about not having sheros. So I would ask that we have a conversation with him prior to that, before anything happens, before you do it.
So,
You know, we have another meeting coming up, don't we? When's our next meeting here?
not till November, so if I'm doing it this fall, it's gonna be end of October here, after we pave.
Well, and this has to go to the council. That would have to go to the
To
council.
pave a show?
I think so.
I don't think
No?
so.
Well, is there anything in our complete streets policy that says anything about this?
I don't believe so.
No, I mean, we have
Not-
to, as we look at roads to pave and what have you, we have to look at.
So we
Like lanes and
we
that.
talk about not getting into the weeds. This committee is supposed to talk about the POCD.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're in the weeds
establishment
now,
We're in
so.
the
The
weeds.
establishment of bike lanes. We
But,
figured
get
out
into
where
the
we
weeds.
figured out what we want to do now.
Yeah.
okay.
Now
well,
technically it's a staff issue.
Yep, move on.
I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
throwing it out to
I
this
think
committee.
so.
It's a
Correct.
staff issue now, right?
Right,
Because
I
we
mean, I
said we
think-
want it, we established where we
Yeah.
want it.
Yep,
Now Dan can
And-
take care of it.
yep.
Yeah.
Ready
Because
to
get the rest out.
we have
Yeah.
discussed this, I think, 3-4 times already.
For 4 years.
Yeah.
More than that.
For 4 years.
I mean,
we've
we
done
have
it.
plans.
We did it with sidewalks. Let's
Yeah.
identify them.
Yeah.
Let's look
So-
at them. Let's keep on going with those. And we're not done with bikeways because but we established our first one.
Yep.
Now it's up
Yep.
to staff
So,
to
Yep.
get her done.
All right, so that's sidewalk, I mean, bikeways.
sustainable.
Connecticut.
So Derek is not here, he asked me to bring you up to date, but I think, Kim, you already mentioned the comprehensive community resilient building workshop, and that was going to be his update, that we were going to participate in that. So, not much of an update beyond that, so thank you for doing Derek's update.
Okay, no problem. Should I talk about?
Yeah,
Well, you know, because the POCD is basically a larger bird's eye view, we want to kind of get back to that, and we're going to be in the process of updating it. I know in conversations with the town manager, he's looking to do a strategic plan for the town, to find, you know, where do we want to be, where do we see ourselves, and how do we get there. We've had a lot of issues with flooding, as you know, and talk about climate change and how every time it rains, we're going to have another flooding problem because we're getting you know, storm events that go way beyond what these have been designed for. So we need to update our townwide drainage plan, as you all know, and that's something we need to talk about as far as drainage and flooding and more of the climate change issues going on. Does our flood ordinance need to be reviewed and modified? What about transit issues? We talked about.
so before we go transit.
Okay, well, this is just kind
No,
of like.
so
This
for-
is general for the next meeting,
Yeah,
for
just
brainstorming,
topics.
yeah.
For flooding, maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know if
Well, we're on
DOT gets involved or not
Nah.
in any of,
Nah, we're working with DOT, we're
Okay.
working on doing, grant money and stuff.
Okay.
So,
So when it comes to that, does the town actually have a physical, do they know what all their drainage is and everything else?
more or less. So, but that's a topic for another day. These are just
Yeah.
Kim's topics,
These are just
not for
ideas.
discussion
yep,
right now.
yep, okay,
Ideas.
yep.
access to transit. We're talking
Mhm.
about sidewalks, we're talking about walking, we're talking about biking. What about public transit?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you deal with it with seniors all the time, and are there ways that we can improve this?
Mhm.
I wasn't able to get a response back yet, but what about comprehensive review of the town facilities in general? Schools, public buildings, parks, the whole
Yep.
bit. You know, I know every now and then the town does that. I don't know what the status is.
I think it's a good point
I think
because
the last
of,
time Lisa was still here.
Yeah, so it's been a while.
For,
I don't know
what
if
is
they're
it,
looking at
what is it for? A comprehensive study about?
town
town
facilities.
facilities.
Just a general study?
Yeah.
You just look at everything ADA compliant,
ADA,
everything,
yeah,
you know.
safety.
Any
Yeah,
Safety.
Safety committee.
repairs that you have to
You know, hey,
do,
you
Yeah.
still
any
got
upgrades.
incandescent bulbs, it should be LED, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
A lot of what this goes to is the CIP. Because our CIP, capital improvements programming, in looking at what's in there, a lot of it is maintenance. And maintenance should not be in there.
Should happen regularly.
CIP is
That
not
should be
for
budgeted for.
maintenance
Yeah.
purposes. That should be budgeted for. So I really want to tie the POCD and the strategic plan to the CIP. Because that's how it's supposed to be. It should be done. That's how it should be done, but it hasn't been done in that way yet. So we're working on that, towards that. The whole thing on economic development, our plan is more than parks and sidewalks and bikeways. It's also, even though that does go to quality of life, which does go to economic development, but what about, what about businesses? What about business retention,
Yep.
business growth, workers' housing,
And
workers'
those
housing,
are-
work, live, play units,
Yep.
that type of thing. The affordable housing, we're talking about affordable housing. P&Z has a lot of stuff underway, but the Housing Authority, I know they were here one time, and the affordable housing for the aging population, because our population is aging. And I know a lot of those units out there, they're not remotely affordable. And people eat
In
them
the
up.
housing authority?
No, I'm talking about the other age-restricted communities in
Okay.
town. They're not-
55 and older.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah.
They're
Not.
they're
Which is
not
which
affordable.
is
No, if I
everybody's
sold my
two-year
house, I'd be
target, but I
moving
think
up,
we
not
had to
moving,
broaden
not
that.
Yeah,
downsizing.
not that
That's reality
housing.
is.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Melissa,
Yeah.
what were you saying?
Yeah.
couldn't
I
hear
mean,
you.
I was just saying that is absolutely a focus, but I think that it's very, I think we're all aware of it, but I don't think to the magnitude. Housing crisis in general, interest rates are 8%. Two and three bedroom, mediocre median homes, we have a good town, but are going for $400,000.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's
The
insane.
next generation in the economic look, and this is a piece of certainly the big
Yep.
picture, but I think when I hear you talk about that, I think sort of factoring in the economic perspective for a relatively affluent town that we live in here in Rocky Hill, but even still, the struggles and the volume of insurmountable odds that I deal with every day. I mean, these kids are coming out of, I say kids, right? I'm talking late 20s, early 30s, but the next generation to include their parents, trying to educate them at $200,000+, and then the magnitude of the student loan, in order to qualify for the 8% mortgage rate, and you can't exceed the 30%, but try to buy a $350,000 house in this town. Currently, I looked yesterday, there's about 5
Just
on the
trying to
market
find one.
in the town of Rocky Hill. When you tack on that mortgage and the 8% rate, so without going on and on, I mean, I think what you're saying is absolutely, but I think we always go to the aging population, which is important, but I think
Even the young.
I
The
think
younger
if we
people.
don't look at the bigger picture
Yeah.
as well, I think if we don't look at the up and coming, we are gonna find ourselves in a position 15 years from now,
I think, and I
far
think.
greater than we are right now.
Right, and I think that's where, when you hear workforce housing or this housing, that housing, right? So we should just focus on affordable housing.
Correct.
Which is for everybody.
Correct, because yes.
Because, because everybody needs affordable, as you just said, somebody coming out of college. I mean, you need good teachers for your schools, right? Because you love your schools. How are they going to, the newly
Yeah.
minted educators with 3, 4, 5 years experience, how they going to live in your town when it's too expensive? But you want good teachers.
We gotta pay them.
So, same thing, police officer, fire, all the services that we need, like, elderly services that we need, like, yeah, I mean,
I'm
so,
kidding, I'm trying to make light of it.
I have a question. This reverts to the affordable housing, but it's connected to this. Those two elderly housing complexes, are they considered affordable?
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
That must really bump up our percentage, or that?
No.
It's
still-
only
That's
77 units, so when you look at
And
means
they're,
that-
So
and
that's-
they're
that
in
doesn't
dire
make a
need
dent.
of upgrades.
So,
There is a
they have
grant. there is a
72,
grant.
77 or
Is that
78
by Mosher?
units up there, but when you
Yeah,
look at
they
the
really just,
vast
you almost need to just
number
move it for
of
itself.
rental
Yeah.
units in
Like
Rocky
Century
Hill.
Like a
Hills
vessel,
alone.
couple
Correct.
stories.
Okay.
It's really
Yeah.
nothing. I mean, both Weathersfield has 7 or 8 complexes that are elderly, disabled, and family units. Ours are just elderly and disabled here. There's no family units. So some of those 65 or so units we were talking about are subsidized by Section 8 or other, state or federal
And
supplemented, but there are no other, like a family unit in the town of Rocky Hill. There is nothing to apply for.
Unless,
So I
like
think-
Glastonbury took some buildings over and actually
Yeah.
had.
So I think,
was reading that today.
I raised this last time when Housing Authority came here. I think we should have a plan, when you talk about plan, what do we do with the house? I think we should go 2-story and see if we can do certain things, in phases, but I think to increase it's all one story,
Yeah.
right? It's sitting all that, we should go double and see, what we can do. I mean,
First you establish the zone, and
Oh, the
then you,
housing.
No, no, no.
You're
No, I'm
talking the
just-
housing authority.
a Housing Authority building, yeah, we get
They would
grants.
need to relocate, they would need to.
Yeah, you'd have to move all those folks
So-
out, level,
so
because
to-
you can't add on to those.
so to an earlier point, this is the stuff you wanna put on the next agenda to talk about, right?
Yes.
So that's good, so we can save all this,
These
Yeah.
types
all
of
this stuff. I'm
things.
not saying we can't talk about it now,
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
saying,
yeah,
is there,
yeah, yeah.
we should
You
talk
added-
about it next time and come with some
Maybe
ammunition for
we
it.
add Housing Authority, like upgrade Housing Authority. And DOH gives out grants.
Right, and
CDBG
that
grants.
is
That's-
well, they're doing some CDBG
Yeah.
grants. They've done, but it's for
Bee Gees.
upgrades, it's for new roofs,
That's
it's
just
for
CBD.
heating
So we can-
systems, for that, but.
Thought the
they
Bee
need
Gees
to
were
think
doing
about
CBD.
that. We had that conversation.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get you
Healing
off.
with
I'm
those
just
types
saying,
of
I think
things.
that we would be foolish not to look at the overall, just
Yep.
housing
Hey,
in general,
you-
because
in
every
general.
generation,
Needs.
every situation, regardless of your education,
Yes.
your pay, is in crisis. And anybody who thinks they're not is, most of us, even in own homes and have stable
Yeah, yeah.
income, are one accident, God forbid,
That's
one layoff away from being in a position where we could lose our homes. It's that bad with the market, so.
All right, that's it.
All right.
We almost got out of 7.
Shelter planning and hazard mitigation plan.
What was that?
Which one is that?
Shelter planning
Shelter.
for hazard
Yep.
and hazard mitigation plan. That's another.
That's part of this resilience.
I'm the shelter
Yeah,
person
that
in
should be
town, so
part
I'm a
of-
good one with that.
So
Yeah,
that's
that's
like,
right.
you go to the
Yeah.
high school if there's a problem and that's the shelter, that's what you're talking about? Like if there's a hurricane?
Well,
Well, it's more complex than that, but yeah, in essence.
Well,
So
and the-
emergency plan and all that other
Yes.
stuff?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you go there, but you gotta prep and,
Oh, yeah, no, I understand.
All the
I just
backstory.
wanted to, yeah.
yeah.
All right, that's it.
Rock and roll.
You got number
We got-
8?
Yeah, number
yeah,
eight.
Number 8?
That was it.
do we have any, this is basically the group that appears. Is that okay for,
If we're talking
Yeah.
economic development, you should probably have somebody in the business sector maybe.
I would agree, and then also, I
Well, who's
think
our
at one
economic
time.
development person?
I-
Well, we don't really have one
right
right
now
now.
it's raised.
He's now the town manager.
Yeah.
I think at one time, all of the commissions in town were represented here. I'm not quite sure who I represent anymore, to be honest. I'm here
I think
representing
you're-
myself
Well-
and Sustainable CT and Walk by
You're a
Cracker
Park
Hill,
and Rec,
maybe
Park and Rec.
Park and Rec, I guess.
Craig used to attend, but he doesn't.
Well,
But I
let's
agree,
look at the
economic,
list.
and economic development, right?
Well,
Sandy's
yeah.
here from
I
inland
did,
wetlands.
I did talk to Ray today
P&Z.
about this, as far as we want to have an economic development focus also, and then he's suggesting that maybe someone on the commission.
Yeah, I talked to him, he said he's gonna,
Would attend.
they have their next meeting coming
So,
up and
Kim,
all.
why don't you
talk
give
about
me
that.
like a list, what I'll do, I'll also talk to
How
Gail
about-
and see,
Okay.
and then Ray as well, because we need representation, I mean,
Yes.
we are same people, we are bringing
Yeah.
all these
Yeah.
ideas, and then later on, they'll be like, hey, why this is not happening, that's not happening, right? Or we are trying to do our thing.
I would ask again to look at all the different commissions. You have an Inclusion and Innovation Committee now. Somebody from there could come in and represent. Sustainable CT, Derek has been coming, so.
Regular
Let's-
or
let's-
Oh, we know.
as needed?
I mean,
No,
Or
as
maybe-
regularly, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Regular, is
I
that-
think that was the goal, wasn't it, Kim, for this PIC committee, to have a representative from
Yes.
all the different commissions?
Or not every one, but no, yeah, I know.
Everything that's represented in the plan of things,
Everything that's represented, right,
Correct.
yeah.
including education, if they mention education, Board of Ed.
Board of Ed?
Pension plan for P and Z and say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The more people that are sitting around and agree upon something, the easier it is to move forward.
That's the, agree upon is the operative.
I agree to motion to adjourn.
Motion
All
to
right.
adjourn, second.
What's that, is it December the next?
Thank you all.
November?
Thank you.